And we've really enjoyed having people come and talk about the work, the artists that make the work, and today we have the collectors who collect it. It's really exciting to have them with us to share their enthusiasm and their love of the art that they have and that they see. And I feel like it's such a treat to see collectors' work that they've collected and to share their experiences. So I feel really happy that we're all together here. Let me start by introducing our collectors, beginning with Anastasia Colombo. She's a contemporary Texas art collector and art professional. She has a really long career in the arts. She was the associate director of D. Berman Gallery. And those of you who can remember, it was right around the corner from Women in the Work at 17th and Guadalupe. We were such great neighbors for such a long time, and I really miss that gallery. She was the co-director of Big Medium and the PR director of Landmarks, and she served on the board of Women in the Work. So welcome, Anastasia. Rudy Green is an attorney, arts advocate, and collector. He spent decades researching and collecting work, primarily those of contemporary African-American and African diaspora artists, creating a nationally recognized collection that he shares with his wife, Joyce Christian, where she should be here. I'd love to see her. Recent positions that he's held include the Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer at the University of Miami and Director of Compliance Services at UT Austin. Kathleen Loughlin is a contemporary art collector, art advocate, entrepreneur, and mother of 2 girls. She's the current board chair for the Contemporary Austin, and she serves on the advisory council for the Visual Arts Center, the VAC at UT. She's been a member of the Blanton's Art National Leadership Board. She has an undergraduate degree from A&M and an MBA from UC Berkeley, and she wants to pursue or hopes to pursue a degree in art history at some point. So welcome. Elisa and Joel Sumner are contemporary Texas art collectors with a focus on Austin, and they're art advocates for sure. Elisa is an IT architect for General Motors, and she served on the board of Women in Their Work. And Joel is a senior director of semiconductor test R&D at National Instruments. He's currently on the board of advisors for collab projects, and he previously was the board chair for Art Alliance Austin. So we have such a wealth of experience here. I'm very excited. So what we're going to do today is have each of our collectors, they've brought images, they've gathered some images, and I think it was a hard thing to do to limit the number of things they show because they have so much more, and I wish we could just go on, but they've limited their collection to a few images to show us what they like and why they collect it. And we wondered, so that each one of them will present it. And as they were talking about it, we thought maybe they could talk about how they began collecting or what their collecting focus was, and even about what attracts them to this particular work. And so we'll go through each one of them. We'll be able to talk about that. And then we'll have a few other questions. Please feel free to jump in on the chat, and we'll have room also for questions at the end of the session. So take it away, Anastasia.
I'm assuming you have control over the images. Oh, this is a great one to start out with. This is Alyssa Taylor Wint here in Austin. So I began collecting, if you want to call it that, the first piece that I purchased was when I was about 17 years old. I bought it from a bakery, and I fell in love with it. And I think it was very powerful to think about the fact that I could bring something original into my home and feel really filled with joy. And I think I have a pretty diverse collection. And my husband Jay and I don't have a particular theme where we certainly are really focused on supporting Texas contemporary artists, but we don't focus on any particular media or subject. And I would say works that fill us with joy. We're just attracted to pieces that that speak to our soul. And I think, you know, when we were talking the other day about collecting, and we were talking about the fact that it's often intimidating for people to feel confident in purchasing anything to bring home. I I feel like I want so much for people to shed the idea that they need to please or impress anybody else at all, and just really commit to work that makes them happy. Oh, and here's so Lance Letcher is on the left. That's a collage piece. Tragically, the light in the house really reflects on everything. And Lisa Chinaki on the right. And you can't really tell, but there is the side view of a Virginia Fleck sod piece right there in the middle, in the coffee area. And that was in the bedroom a moment ago. That was by Sodalitas. This is Faith Gay, Panuki Pan, a fused plastic wall installation. And this piece right here is by Sean Smith, a pixelated bird on a branch, and there's a little tiny pixel on the end of each branch, and a Stella Alessi on the side there. And this is Susie Brister lichen. This one actually from Women in Their Work, I think. Women in the Work, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. Rudy Green.
All right, thank you. And as Chris had indicated before, I guess my collecting strategy revolves around my interest in promoting the culture of people of African descent. And that's something that I've been doing for probably 40 years, but more than 40 years. When I first started, I was promoting music and musicians. Then I met a woman who convinced me that I needed to start paying more attention to visual arts. And so in 1986 is when I say I first bought an art piece that was more than just a decoration. And I've continued to, and so my interest has been, again, the African diaspora, strong interest in the Caribbean. I am now happily married to a woman from the Caribbean, but it didn't start out that way. It just ended that way. You know, the universe is agreeing with me. So we have here an image of, it's a print, it's a calligraphic print by Belkis Ayon Monzo. Ayon Monzo is actually was her name. She died at an early age. And she's gotten a lot of attention recently because of the style of her work. They had a big exhibit that toured the United States. She died a number of years ago. But now people are finding out who she is, which is one of the things I found out early on when I started collecting, is that there were a lot of good Black artists that people were not paying attention to. And now they're paying attention to them. So Belkis Ayon is well known. Many people know about Kara Walker. Of course, she came onto the scene in the 1990s. Very controversial. A lot of focus on images that are not necessarily pleasant, dealing with the American history and slavery. What else do we have? Okay, this is Deborah Roberts before she was the Deborah Roberts that you know. In fact, I have because I've known Deborah since probably the early 90s. I know many Deborah Roberts that you guys don't know. And this is one called Vanilla Dreams that she did when she was really, in my opinion, first starting to experiment with collage in her work, and it was before she went to graduate school. That's Deborah Roberts. Okay, I wanted to show kind of examples of types of work that I collect, which is a lot of different things, not only paintings, but sculptures, tapestries, trained artists, untrained artists. Here we have a steel drum sculpture that's on the wall by a Haitian artist, Michel Remy, La Sirène, which is the female spirit of the sea. And then I've paired that with a sculpture by an African-American artist by the name of Richard Hunt, who's extremely well known in the Midwest. And he's from Chicago and has a lot of public sculptures. And Richard is now in his late 80s. So he was one of the first African-American artists who was celebrated for his abstract sculptures. This particular piece, which is called Flyaway, the standing sculpture, Flyaway, is very unlike most of his sculpture because it has an organic look to it. It's like a bird. And he actually did this, I bought this directly from him. He actually did this in honor of his mother at the time that she passed away. What else do we have over here? Okay. People often ask me about favorite works, and I can never answer that question because I can't say that I have a favorite work. I mean, I have some favorite works, but I certainly have favorite artists. And to a large extent, they're favorite artists because they're also friends. And one of the most important things associated with my life as a collector is interacting with artists and getting to know artists. So here are two works by well-known contemporary African-American artists, Michael Ray Charles on the left and Radcliffe Bailey on the right. Radcliffe is from Atlanta. And I'll tell you a couple of quick stories because both of these are commission pieces. And Michael was dealing with this concept of white flight and white fright at the time. And he did one, it says, keep heads above the best. So head was one of my nicknames when I was growing up. So he wanted to do a piece that at least hinted at my nickname. So hope you guys don't get scared because he's encouraging me to become a white fright provider. The Radcliffe Bailey piece is interesting because of its connection, its association with Austin in one sense. Radcliffe has work that's been collected by the Blanton, and before the Blanton moved into the new building, they had gotten a lot of the artists whose works were in the collection to do discussions and conversations about the artwork in the collection, so that when the Blanton put together a digital audio tool set for viewing, they would have that. So Radcliffe was over here doing his lecture, and he often incorporates a lot of old photographs in his work. And I had the privilege of taking him around to a number of antique stores in Austin to shop for photographs. And he surprised me by doing a work that had a photograph that I was with him when he bought in the Austin antique store. So that photograph came from an Austin antique store up on Burnett Road back in the late 90s sometime. Another one of my favorite artists is Franz Zeffren, who is Haitian, relatively young. Actually, I say relatively young as compared to me. He's about the same age as Michael, early 50s. But Franz has become very well known as a Haitian artist and was featured on the cover of the New Yorker magazine and the Smithsonian magazine when they had the big Haitian earthquake in 2010. And I've been friends with him. We became friends because I was collecting his work and he called me to find out who I was. And he was like, who's this guy that's been buying my work from a couple of galleries? And then he started sending me work, and then he came to visit me and brought some work. He came from Haiti to visit me. We had an exhibit of his work. That would have been in 2003 back at UT. But again, he's one of my favorite artists by his work and because of our friendship. Is there anything else back there? Is that it? Oh, okay. So we have a strong relationship with the University of Texas and the Black Studies Unit. And one of the components of Black Studies Unit is art galleries at Black Studies, of which one of those galleries is the Christian Green Gallery. And this is a photo from an exhibit at that gallery that features one of the pieces that I really like, one of the sculptural pieces, Elizabeth Catlett, who lived in Mexico for a long time. She's African-American. She was African-American. She's passed on. And she lived in Mexico for a long time and was a noted sculptor and printmaker. And you can probably see off to the right in the background an image of a Deborah Roberts piece. This would have been from an exhibit in 2017 at the Christian Green Gallery. And then what else do we have here? Oh, I wanted to also show that I've collected traditional works from the African continent, a bronze ceremonial piece in the middle that's flanked on the right by called a Bamana culture, a fetish. It's actually a two-headed fetish. You can only see one head from this side. It's a Janus fetish. And then on the left is a sculpture by a Haitian artist, Francois Sanon. And I just wanted to, give some type of indication of scope, even though we can't do it in this number of photos. Is that it? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. So Kathleen, we'd love to see your work that you own.
Thank you. And thanks to Women in Their Work for pulling us together. This has been fun for all of us. I was just going to talk for a minute about how I started collecting. My brother, Charles Irvin, is a working artist in Los Angeles. He went to undergrad at UT, and he was my inspiration originally, when he had a pencil in his hand from the age of 2. And I was always amazed at his ability to draw anything and just create from his own mind. So that's probably where my inspiration started. But I was lucky enough to live in some wonderful cities, including London and then New York. And when my family moved to New York, I really had some time to start taking advantage of all the galleries and museums that were there. And I was able to purchase a very, very small Soloit print through a friend who helped me. And I'm still so proud of that piece. But as I started looking into artists and collecting art and just knowing more about it, I realized that there was a real gap. And this was about in 2011, a real gap. There was no, there's equity that is missing everywhere. But for women at the time, and for me personally, I noticed the lack of women that were represented in galleries and museums in New York. And as I dug in more, you think about someone like Lee Krasner, who was married to Pollock. She never had the attention that she probably deserved. Sylvia Mangold, who was married to Robert Mangold as well. I just realized that there was a real gap and lack of just attention to women. So moving to Austin and learning about women in their work, has been wonderful. So my collection is now focused 100% on women. And I really like to also find women maybe who are very late in their career and just haven't received a lot of attention. And then of course, really women of all ages and doing all types of things. So I've not been in Austin that long, but Denise Prince was an artist that I zoned in on pretty early on. And this was a piece that I found in Pop Austin, actually, when that was functioning in Austin, and this is one of Denise's many just fun and just there's a lot going on in this piece. You can move to the next one. Jen Hassan is also an artist who was in Austin, involved with women in their work, and went to New York and to go to grad school. And now she's back, I'm happy to say. And this was a piece that my family and I had a chance to work directly with Jen. I had saved a lot of baby clothing and books from my children, and I didn't know what to do with them. And I saw her rolled paper works and realized that maybe she would be interested in collaborating. So we actually, helped create the paper. She, showed us a pulping process, and we went to her studio in Canopy, and my kids had a chance to work alongside her, which was, just such an exciting opportunity for us. And over a long period of time, this took her a while, we created this work that hangs in our kitchen. So it was, there's a lot of joy that went into that. Atal Adnan is an artist originally from Tel Aviv who has received a lot of attention more probably in the last 10 years. She's actually a poet. She's in her 90s. I think she's living full-time in France now. And she creates small oil paintings, and I've coveted her work ever since I saw it in New York, I think around 2010. And then this was interesting. So before I was able to finally purchase that oil painting, I was able to find a very, very inexpensive work on an online auction. So her paintings are much more dear now, but this was a print edition 23 of 100, and I found it online after hours of research for $100. So I was, I love this one just as much as I love the oil painting. So you can see the similarities there. And Agnieszka Current is a younger artist. She's living full-time in New York now. And this is, it looks like a piece of obsidian. It's not, it's paper. It's paper mache essentially. And she is part artist, part scientist. The work is floating on a pedestal, and there's magnets. There's one in the paper mache rock, and then there's one in the pedestal, and the magnetic kind of anti-magnetic action creates this floating situation where it looks like the rock is literally floating on the pedestal, but it's actually really a paper mache rock. The piece is called Air Rights, and it really spoke to me for many reasons, but it's referring to the fact that you've got this crazy inequality of property that sits over skyscrapers in New York, and the air over a skyscraper in New York is actually more valuable than, a lot of land that's, on the ground. So they say that I think the air rights or the property rights of air literally over skyscraper, if you extended the skyscraper, would be $500 a square foot. So, which is just bizarre, but anyway, moving on. And then one of the final pieces, Natalie Frank is an Austin artist who now also works in New York, but she was born in Austin. A really interesting story. But she came back to Austin through the Blanton in 2014, I think it was, and her work was shown there. And I had known about it for a while, but was able to meet her because of my just interaction with the Blanton and see her work there. And she's known for her gouache and oil colors that are focused on women's work through fairy tales. So the Grimm fairy tales were actually tales that were taken from women in Germany many years before that. And then the Grimm brothers brought them to life and marketed them, and they are known for the work, but the work is actually stories that they heard, you know, women telling, you know, as they were growing up. And I think one more, this is Gada Amer. She's again, a younger artist, kind of an up and coming artist. And this is a watercolor and then embroidery on top of that on paper. And in the last, you know, since 2016, like many of us, political work, you know, by artist activists has really spoken to me. Work that shows and communicates inequality in the world. And so, you know, like many of us, that's definitely, my attention's been taken in that direction. So that was speaking to me through Gada's work. She's a really exciting artist. Oh, and Kay Rosen. And Kay, I did not know, is actually from Corpus Christi. I had no idea, and the Laura Reynolds Gallery here in Austin has shown her work many times. And Kay works on riffs and puns. And this is another kind of female forward work that really spoke to me called She Man. The she is on the ends and the man is in the middle. But she's living and working on the East Coast now, but she has some Texas roots. So I guess despite the fact that I haven't lived here very long, a lot of my work is really now centered on Texas personalities.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Elisa and Joel. Are y'all gonna speak? Elisa?
They're on mute.
Oh, I think they're frozen.
Oh,
No.
Let's see.
can you hear me?
Oh, phooey.
Huh.
They're there.
Oh, wow, that's weird. We just dropped off. Sorry about that. Yeah, we started in the very first East Austin studio tour, and that just started our journey. We discovered over time, I mean, the first things we bought were just things that we looked at that resonated with us. I mean, and I think we learned that we like art that speaks to us, that we have some sort of reaction,
I like to say it hurts me in the heart often, you know, either it's really beautiful or it's just like this one. This one, this is Beth Conchetta-Rubel. She did a whole series of paper bag tests, she called them, and it was related to a time in Austin when you couldn't go in a building unless your skin was lighter than a paper bag. So she did a whole series. This particular one is a guy named David Joseph, and he was the one the APD shot. He was 17 years old and was running towards the police naked, and they shot him. And anyway, that one just really brought all of this home to me, and that is one that truly hurt me. And we had it by the door, and it was just, you know, every day I'd leave, and he'd be looking at me. And so this is a really good example of something that hurts me that I like having in the house, and it's good because it makes me feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been a theme in things that people who are artists in Austin, we've made relationships with them. We really, I mean, part of feeling about art is also learning what the artist was thinking, being able to talk to them directly and learning about it. And so we focused on Austin, and because that's really what makes us feel good about it. You can go to the next one.
This is Alejandra Manuel. And I said that wrong, Almuel, sorry. Alejandra is local. She's been around since the First East and before that. But she's someone who doesn't hurt me. She just appeals to me because her work is just so beautiful. And I love this piece, and it's sitting in front of my fireplace, and it just never fails to make me just see how beautiful she is. So, and I really like Alejandra just had a show, an online sale, and I was there at 10 o'clock in the morning when it started to pick the one that I wanted. I got a little doll that is not quite as stunning as this one, but it's very, very cool. And I love it. Oh, I'm going to do all. So we decided I would do all the women and he would do the men. So all. So Jennifer Balkan is another one that we actually have a rule about what we collect or how much we collect, because we get into, there are people that we love and we would just keep buying everything they ever made. And so we have a rule that says you can only buy 3 from one artist. And it keeps us from monopolizing the artist. It also keeps us fresh. It keeps us looking. It keeps us, when we have 2 by the same artist, we think really hard about the 3rd one because that's going to be our last one. But so Jennifer Balkan is just, I'm a fangirl of hers. This is Karen Offit. It's a picture of her, or a painting of her done on the the bridge down here. What's that bridge?
The Pleasant Valley. The
Pleasant Valley Bridge. And this one kept popping up on Reddit, and it kept just getting all kinds of comments. And it was one of the first pieces I ever bought that I didn't see in person first. She had already sent it to a gallery in North Carolina, and I really just kept asking her about it, but I was hoping they'd send it back here. And finally they just offered to send it to me and I could send it back if I didn't love it in person. But anyway, so this is, we've only got 2 big ones from Jennifer. We've got 1 small one. Sometimes we say, well, that first one was kind of small. Maybe that doesn't count. So maybe I get to have another Jennifer one day. But anyway.
So Jennifer, if you're watching, get in touch.
Okay, go ahead.
But, and I think that also causes us to, for artists we really like, that also helps us find, okay, well, we really want to evangelize this artist to somebody else. And so we like talking about it. And they are people in the community. They're people we know and relationships we have. This is a still from a video. So it's kind of hard to put in a presentation like this, but this is one of the few video pieces we have, and we have it in our kitchen, and everybody is always looking at it. It gets comments from anybody that comes in the house, whether they have an art background or not. And Sean, who did this artist and who is in this video, does collab projects. He has gone from artist to gallerist, to administrator, director. And so we have these relationships that have been built up over 15 years of us being in the art community. And it's really special to us, and it adds something beyond the object itself and the enjoyment we get from the object.
I like to call this one, we used to have it on the bottom of the stairwell at our old house, and he would just be building this prison every day. And I used to think he was my little hamster. I'd come out and talk to him and want to go pet him and say, how you doing today, Sean?
Sean in a box.
Yeah.
And we took him to China with us when we lived there, because that was something that we could fit in a suitcase and bring with us.
The work.
Okay, next one. This one is quite large, and when we saw it, it has this visual impact to it. It's also, we have a number of pieces that have some interesting material to it and some interesting construction. This is actually a print, and then the print is of a reproduction of a halftone from a newspaper, which then is drilled through with a drill. And so the white areas actually are not, it's not the paper. This is all kind of falling apart. And when we first saw it, it looked like, yeah, it was on sheetrock, and it was just almost in a pile on the floor. And we thought, well, how in the world can we have this in our house? It's stunning. But then he put it in a window box, and that's been with us for a long time. And it's obviously quite an arresting piece. And also it has some ambiguity. And when we talked to the artist, we learned he's from Juarez. He was doing his MFA in Austin. And this is a victim of the drug war. And you don't know whether he's a good person or a bad person. That's ambiguous. We don't know what happened to this person. We just know they're a victim. And so it has a lot of power in its construction and just in its subject matter.
Another thing about this is we have several pieces in the collection that a lot of people have told us that make them very uncomfortable, and it makes them, like especially this one, like I could never have a dead person on my wall. And we've actually got a few cases of that. And I don't know. I mean, I like the darkness of it, and it gets back to making your heart hurt a little bit. But
Yeah. Okay, next one. Deborah, you want to talk?
oh, I
Deborah?
got. Yeah, so Deborah Brose, she used to run pump projects back in the day, and Deborah, that was when we first started going to art, and we really liked her. She's since moved to California. But Deborah made these really, she was a ceramicist. She fixed people's broken ceramics by trade, and she ran the gallery, but she also took really interesting or tacky, kitschy pieces, and then she would fit them together and she would make new creatures. And so I have one that's got a fox and a hen, and she's reversed the heads. And so they're always quirky. They're usually kind of funny. This one I just find majestic. I mean, these two dogs are so awesome. And Joel and I have a deal where if it's up to a certain price point, if you like it, buy it. Once it gets over a certain price point, we both have to agree. And so this was one that was pretty expensive for us at the time. And I really liked it, and Joel was traveling a lot. So I sent him pictures, and I was like, look at these dogs. They're so awesome. And Joel was like, and Deborah, we were at Pump Project one time, and I had asked Joel a couple of times, and he just wasn't going for it. And so Deborah came up. One thing I really appreciate about artists is when they're not afraid to sell it a little bit, so Deborah came up to Pump and she said, I've still got your dogs. And I was like, Joel, come see the dogs. And so we went to our little studio and we saw the dogs, and Joel was like, wow, those are actually, and once he saw them in person, he got it. Okay. And we wrote the check and took them home. So anyway, I miss Deborah, but she still posts on Instagram a good amount, and I like to keep up with what she's doing. I've also, I don't have any here. She also has this one that's squirrels, and the squirrels are eating Cheetos, and she calls it Cheeto hands, and there's just Cheetos all over its face, and for various reasons, I love that one too. So.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep. Well, I had so many questions, and it was so good to hear this. I know, so Elisa and Joel, you get a lot of your work, you find it from, I wanted to ask everyone where you get the work, or how do you go about, what fields do you till? How do you find the work? Like Kathleen mentioned, she found a piece, was it on Etsy, or was it on a website?
I want to say it was on ArtNet.
ArtNet. Yeah,
it was a long time ago.
Yeah, ArtNet, and then, which is very much an anomaly for you. But Kathleen, I've got you here. What do you visit? Just when you go to a new town to visit the galleries, do you have like places that you frequent, or you just where does one go about finding the art that they love? Yeah,
and I swear Chris is not plugging this. She did not ask me to say this, but I want to say there's one really important role, and Women in Their Work is one of those organizations. Getting to know organizations that support artists is a great way to meet and find and understand more about art. And Austin has quite a few amazing organizations, and you've got the Blanton and the Contemporary Austin, and that's, they are a wonderful resource. So I want to say that. And then just personally, I just do a lot of research myself. And when I had small kids and I couldn't sleep at night, I would look up artists. So I think I know everyone else has a lot of other ideas, so I'll stop there, but those are two great ways.
Great to hear. So Elisa and Joel?
Well, we started at East, and we would just go, and it was before that thing went crazy, and we would just go and see a bunch of people that we really like, or just that we saw in the catalog and intrigued us, and we would look around, and then at the end of the weekend we'd say, what was your favorite, and we'd go back and buy it. I don't think that works anymore, right? Because I think that a lot of the stuff goes right away. But we got to know a lot of people that way. But I agree with Kathleen that I think we've tended, as we've matured, and we've tended to go to galleries like Women in Their Work. I've learned a lot from there. I love the artist talks. Purchased a few things from you guys. Another gallery I really like is Gray Deck. Jill and I have similar tastes in a lot of ways, and she's gotten to know me well enough that she knows that I'm going to love a specific show, or and she'll send me a couple of pictures ahead of time. But I always like going there. We love Collab. We mentioned them earlier.
Icosa, Big
Icosa, Big
Medium.
Medium.
There's a lot of
mostly East Side. Women in Their Work is about our only West Side, but now you're coming to the East Side, so that's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Totally awesome.
Yeah.
Can you, and speaking of Gray Duck, what about that piece right behind you? Can you tell her?
Oh, this one.
Oh, this one.
No, that one.
This is you can't get it's 9 foot by 9 foot. It came from Gray Duck. It's by an artist named Elizabeth McDonald, who was living in Austin, and she has since moved to Brooklyn. But this piece was, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's also, she had it in a show at Gray Duck called, it was about shame. And so everything in there was dirty laundry, there was people shaving their heads. But this one is a collage of banned books.
And book burnings.
And book burnings. And then she's kind of got this cute little line in it that I really like. And it reminds me of my dad's old Nikon camera. Sometimes it's something like that that just sells me on a piece. It's like, it reminds me of Dad's camera back in the day. But that's yeah, we have something called I call them my nursing home pictures, you know, and I don't really have favorites, but I'm like, these are the 5 that are coming with me to the nursing home. I want to be in it, but it's like 9 foot square. I'm like, what kind of nursing home is going to find that? And then somebody recommended, put it on the ceiling. Like, okay.
Where there's a well, there's a way.
Right.
Anastasia, where have you found a lot of your work, or where do you continue to look?
I think a little bit of everywhere, but we haven't purchased outside of Texas. But, you know, not just Austin, although we like I said, we really like to support local, but all over the state, high end, low end. So galleries, artist studios, I mean, obviously East Austin Studio Tour, West Austin Studio Tour, auctions, you know, from, there are so many museums and art spaces that have various fundraisers. And so it's such a mix. And I really liked that Kathleen included that piece that was like $200, because I feel like I mean, our collection, my and Jay's collection certainly goes the range from pieces that we really had to hurt a little bit to acquire, to pieces that you know, are so much more accessible. Or, you know, we've also been buying for a long time, and buying power kind of changes as you get older. And I feel like there are a lot of people who focus on I think people focus on cost in a strange way. You know, it's interesting. It's something I've thought about a lot as a former gallerist, and it's something that when we were talking the other day, just us as a group, we were sort of in like I was talking about earlier, in thinking about people's ease and allowing themselves to love what they love. I think you kind of have to, I mean, I don't know how to phrase this. You kind of, obviously you have to think of what your budget is, but you have to sort of not get pulled into what the cost is. You have to think about what's realistic for yourself. But for example, a lot of people don't realize that they can pay a gallery or an artist incrementally to purchase something. There, quite a few years ago, when Jay and I got married, one of our favorite pieces, as a matter of fact, it was one of the pieces that was in the slideshow earlier, Barney Blimps by Sodalitas, which is Joseph Phillips, Janice Sweck, and Shay Little. That piece was pretty on the outside. It was beyond our budget at the time, but we had been paying it in pieces. And this was in 2005. And when we got married, some friends of ours, we were kind of reluctant to have a registry or anything like that. And we kind of threw some stuff on with family pressure, but friends who knew us really well knew that what we really wanted was just for people to pay for art for us. and so several friends went in and helped us pay for that piece. But so yeah, I really liked that. You can start at whatever level is good. And I think things like the women in their work, Red Dot sale going on right now, fundraisers like that in East Austin Studio Tour and West Austin Studio Tour. I think it's such a great place to sort of let yourself explore and and find new people.
Well, I think
that was an all over the board kind of answer.
It was fantastic. And also, like you point out, like Kathleen she loves the piece that was $100. And then another piece that by the same artist that was multiples of $100. But the joy and the love is not it's not determined by the money that it costs. And I think that's such an interesting point. So,
and Chris,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just going to pull Rudy into this because Rudy, look, I mean, he has all this amazing work by Deborah, who was a friend of his. I mean, and wow, her career has just taken off. But I mean, I think Rudy, you may have, like, you supported her for a long time, and she was a friend, and you just loved everything she did.
Well, I certainly, I mean, it's certainly been important to me to support artists. Directly if I can. As we indicated, I've been doing this for a long time now, and long ago run out of space to display stuff. So right now, if I bought something, I have to evaluate what stack is it going into for the most part. And so I don't do the same types of things that I did early on. I mean, I had an interesting status as a Black collector. I mean, when I would go to certain places, especially in the 90s, there weren't a lot of Black collectors, and you couldn't find a lot of the work by really good Black artists in the galleries other than in Black galleries. So I shopped in New York, I shopped in Atlanta. My wife and I have loved to travel. We've bought a lot of work, again, African diaspora, so outside of the United States. I mean, we've bought work when we travel. We honeymooned in Brazil, and I bought some things that were very important to us, sculpture and art. And we have throughout our marriage traveled, and that's been an important element of travel, is to go look at art and find some art by artists that are good artists that haven't been recognized. But we did support a lot of the galleries. And again, because of the type of work we were looking for, you didn't generally see that in Austin Houston had some galleries, but we generally bought when we travel. Now, when I buy things, and it's been toned down dramatically, I feel pretty experienced, and it's been very important for me as a collector to educate myself. So we have a very significant library of catalogs, monographs, just various books about art. We have a lot, because it was very important to me early on to learn about the artists. And right now, it's important for me to support documentation. So my relationship with the University of Texas is extremely important, because it's not only relating to exhibiting works, it's what I say is educating a new generation of scholars about work, so that they can document the work of some of these artists who've been overlooked. So right now, I buy a lot of stuff in auctions, online auctions through the Live Auctioneers facility. There are a lot of auctions that are online now. And
What are some
I'm
examples?
very specific. What
Rudy,
was that?
What are some of the examples of those auctions? I mean, can you?
Well, I mean, there are different auction houses. There's one called let's see, Sloden Folk Art is in Georgia. Sometimes they have some stuff that I like. There's an auction house in Philadelphia. I can't think of the name of it right now, but they often will feature works by Haitian artists and African artists. I still have a lot of artist friends, and I have bought directly from artists. I mean, I talked to you about Michael. I've traded with artists. I've done a lot of trades over my career. I've traded a lot of work. So I'll get a painting they'll get 5 or something like that. Because we have a collection right now that's several hundred pieces. And I can't display it all. My wife keeps saying, when are we getting rid of some of this stuff? And so UT asked the same thing. When are you guys getting rid of some of this stuff? So some of it has gone to UT. Some of it has gone to some other institutions. But our objective is to use the art for educational purposes.
That's so interesting. Well, can you guys share a story about a work that got away, or a mishap, or an interesting story that you met in a gallery, or in just something? I know, Kathleen, you mentioned about trying to buy a piece.
I'll keep that story brief. I think there's all different ways to go about it. I think personal relationships, if you really become interested in collecting, I think personal relationships take you farther than, like anything in life, than any other strategy. But there is a female artist, and I have been trying to buy her work for a few years now. And, there are, certain galleries that, there's a strategy on their side just as much as, a collector may have a strategy. And if you don't fit their strategy, then
It's hard to get the work.
It's hard to get the work. And so again, I think personal relationships are the best way. And also, I think everyone on this call would agree that knowing the artists and understanding like their thinking and their creativity and just their life, like that's really the best gift that you could have through collecting.
I think
I have one that kind of ties into your last question, Chris, about places to get artwork, which is that some years ago when Jay and I bought our first house, we were looking at houses with our realtor friend, and happened into a house that was actually, the house itself was not for us. But there was a Mickey Mayfield painting in the house, and I was really excited about it. I'd been really lusting after a Mickey Mayfield for quite a while, and he didn't sell in galleries, and he died, and I didn't have any idea where you could acquire one. And so anyway, I actually I contacted the realtor and asked if they would ask their client if by any chance they were ever interested in selling that piece. And as it turns out, the fellow who'd lived in the house had unfortunately passed away, and everything had gone to his sister, and she was a painter and had a house filled with her own work and was fairly uninterested in her brother's collection, and was perfectly happy to let
de-accession
that one to us. And so she said, well, what do you think is a fair price? And I mean, like I said, he didn't sell at galleries, and we had no idea where to even begin valuing that particular piece. And the Contemporary, which used to be the Austin Museum of Art, had a mini retrospective of his work. And so I asked Anna Fries Hansen, who used to be the director there a long time ago, for any tips. And he put me in touch with this fellow who had been, associated with Mickey, and he kind of led us in the right direction. It was funny, just the ridiculousness of how that came to be in our life.
Well, the first image that you showed, Mickey Mayfield's work, was in that picture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
we all got to see it.
I don't think it showed. I don't think you guys showed it, but yeah. There's the Alyssa Taylor Went piece over the fireplace.
Yeah.
And to the right. That's
and Mickey's
right.
in the corner. Yeah.
He's in the corner. He's in the corner.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, I think one of the things I really note and so appreciate from each of you that the experience of collecting art, it's really not primarily about the object, about obtaining the object, and that is one of the things, but it's also so much about connection and community and friendship and discovery, and it's really I think it's all those things. Are there any other adjectives you can add to encourage people? It's just a wonderful something to live with, an object to live with, but also just the world that it opens to you, and every one of you mentioned that. I mean, friendships that you had and people that you met, and it's very exciting. Did you all have any other comments? I think it's almost time.
I would just echo what others have said about being able to get into it without having to spend relatively large sums of money, because there's a lot of good art out there that's not expensive art. There's a lot of good art that's not expensive art. So you have to look, you have to be diligent. Art fairs, of course, there's a lot of art that I don't like, but because there's a lot of art. So, for me, it's just that, again, because I've been doing this for so long, I have very strong opinions about how I approach it, but I do know that you can get a lot of good stuff for very little money.
Well, I want to encourage everyone that's on this to go to the Red Dot. It's virtual this year. It's 25 years, which is just remarkable. 25 years that every year we ask artists to provide a piece and they get a percentage of the sale for this event. And it's so far ranging. It's very intriguing to see just the range. Like you say, Rudy, there's so many different kinds of art. And to please, because we're all so different, right? We have so many different interests. And so I encourage you all to come to Red Dot, and you can come anytime, day or night, until 7 o'clock on Monday. And this Monday, what else is going to be on your mind? November the 2nd. So anyway, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you again in real life, and I look forward to welcoming you all to the gallery. We are, I can give you a quick progress report. We are supposedly just days away from getting our permit.